Seems like everything's in order. So, what I decided to do today, just didn't have much motivation to do any games. Just thought I'd do some art and a simple Q&A. I already have a couple questions already set aside, but if anybody in the chat decides they want to ask any questions, I'm all ears. So, a while ago, I decided I was going to do a... Let me organize this a little bit. I was just going to do a couple background studies, and one of the things I did was a wisteria tree. But I wasn't super happy with it. So I decided, after looking at Bluey, because honestly, having children around, not my children, nieces and nephews, I had to watch Bluey very often. And I noticed that the backgrounds were this really lovely watercolor. And it really just got me excited. And I wanted to try doing that art piece again since I wasn't really happy with it. I was going to come back and try to do it again. Where's the specific one that I had prepped? It was this one. Specifically this one in the top left hand corner. I'm mostly going to be basing my new set around that. So while I am honestly trying to get back into drawing, because I haven't done this in a fair bit, I'm just going to be answering a couple questions. So one of the questions that honestly is a very popular one to ask. I'm just going to use this. Also, I do not have any shortcuts on my art tablet for any of this. That's why I go to it by hand. Anyway, a question that gets asked very often is typically, are you single? Do you have any children? I am not in a relationship currently. I am happily single. Never really had the... I guess the determination is a word I could use to just find a partner. Honestly, dating nowadays is just too hard. Wait, hold on. Dating nowadays is just too hard, and honestly, it's not really worth it to get into the dating sphere. And children is, it's a a sensitive topic for myself, but I don't mind giving out the answer of I don't have children and I don't plan for a very long time to have children. Another one that typically gets asked is, where did I grow up and where do I live now? It's a bit of a weird question, and obviously, being a content creator, I'd rather not give people my exact location. So, I'm just gonna give a general locale, of course. I was born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. If any of you decide to visit, I'm so sorry. We don't have a lot out here. But we do have a, I won't say rich, but when it comes to diversity, we lean more towards Korean and Latino culture. It's not the direction I'm looking for. It's kind of jarring at times, especially when you're going through, I don't want to say the ghettos, but the ghettos. The slums of the city, honestly. You go from a lot of homeless people in the streets and there's trash everywhere. And then you reach the high class, the business people of Richmond. And then suddenly you're in a Latino area where everything is in Spanish, and goodness gracious, the air just smells so good. Don't know half the time what they're making, but it just smells so good that you want to just go investigate. Honestly, the greatest part about living in Richmond. If you do decide to come visit, it'd be a good idea to find yourself a taco truck. My goodness. Honestly, we don't really have much out here. I mean, it's not like Vegas or I guess LA could be another one where there's a lot of attractions, a lot of stuff for people to do. We don't really have much. We're more of a business area, honestly. I'm pretty sure per capita we had the most businesses and headquarters of businesses out of all the states. Typically, if somebody wants to have an order of operations, they usually set up in Virginia. Honestly, nothing else I can really say about it. We're pretty boring, unless you're a business person or you want some really good food. So I'm just gonna move on to another question because listening about how sad my whole town is honestly quite depressing. So, music. What music do I listen to and what is my favorite song? honestly, I listen to a little bit of everything. Game soundtracks, lo-fi. A big one is early 2000s hip hop and pop from, again, the early 2000s, just around the 2010s, just a little bit after. Game soundtracks, more recently, I've been listening to the Gerudo Desert and this is gonna sound so bad, but Baldur's Gate 3, Raphael's theme. Honestly, I listen to it at least twice a day. But as much as I listen to it, it is not one of my favorite songs. Probably not even in the top 5. My favorite songs to listen to, because I can't just choose one, I have two. One being Dancing in the Moonlight, but specifically the Top Loader rendition, the cover that they did. I can't remember what year they released it. I think it was 2001. And if anyone has seen Wall-E, Down to Earth, that was the end credit song by Peter Gabriel. I listen to that so often. So often that when I finally got YouTube Premium, it was one of the first songs I downloaded onto my phone. So, next question. I thought I'd be talking more than this. Oh, goodness. Honestly, a lot of these questions, because I just wanted to fill up for time, I just have a whole bunch just set aside, written in a little notebook. What is something I wish more people knew about me? There's a couple things, but I suppose my big one is because I have RBF. To anyone who doesn't know what that is, basically, I look rather unhappy no matter how I am feeling. My face just naturally rests in a very frowny position. People tend to think that I'm standoffish or that I don't like where I am. I'm honestly a pretty happy individual. I try to be, at least. Try to sit on the positive side of things, but some people take my sarcasm a little seriously, which that is my fault. I do tend to do a more serious tone when it comes to sarcasm, so people can't quite pick up on it. That is my bad. But as angry as I look, I am rather friendly, and I am happy to be talking to you. 90% of the time. Some people just don't know when to quit when it comes to a conversation. And I suppose another thing is I don't watch sports, but I am willing to listen to you ramble on about sports all day. I am not very religious, but if you were to relate your religion to me in a respectful manner, I will listen. I am not political, but if you can relay your points to me without seeming like a psycho on Twitter, I will listen. I don't know if this would be a good or bad thing to mention, but actually, let me go here. I am libertarian, or an offshoot of it, I suppose. I do have quite liberal leaning values. I tend to have conservative leaning values, but most of all, I value the government just laying off on some of my rights. I would appreciate if we took more of our independence seriously as Americans. I am American, by the way. Hi. Don't think I need to mention that, seeing as I said I'm from Virginia. But, moving on. I value not being told what to do as long as it's safe. You don't need to tell me that what's some random law I can put on my back pocket? You don't need to tell me not to exceed the speed limit. I know that. That is a law I accept. But something as silly as you need to wear your seatbelt, otherwise you get a ticket. I think if people are going to be dumb enough to ride around without a seatbelt, that should be their choice. They're right. I, on the other hand, will wear one. But it'd be a little silly if I got in trouble just because I forgot to put it on one day. I don't hate rules, I just hate the unnecessary ones. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna try to use my round brush for a majority of this. That's because I hate switching between all this. Politics. I really don't like talking about politics. It's such a touchy subject. So let's move on. Another question that often gets asked is, can I speak another language? Oui, je parle un peu de français. I studied French for just about, I'd say 2.5 years. Never really got anywhere with it because a little bit into my education, I became homeschooled. I started learning Japanese, I'd say maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I haven't gotten anywhere with it because I'm mostly doing like listening practice. It's been a rough little journey, but I'm able to at least hear what other people are saying. And moderately understand them. I'd say I say the I say 2-3 years, but it's 2-3 years on and off. altogether, it's probably been about, I'd say, 6 months of learning officially, if all that time was accumulated at once. But if I actually sat down and tried to dedicate myself to learning Japanese, I'd probably get it in about a year, maybe two. Typically, the hardest part of learning a language for me is the actual speaking part, just because even in English, you can hear it right now, I have trouble finding the words. I have to sit there for a couple seconds and actually think about what word I want to use in a situation. So I'll sit there for maybe, 2 minutes trying to think of how to say pickles in Japanese, so I can ask for pickles. And it's probably the most simplistic word, and I'm just sitting there drawing a blank. Honestly, if I could get back into the swing of things, I'd go back to learning French and Irish, because French and Irish Gaelic were the two languages I was doing in high school. I did a little bit of Korean after I did my first semester in university. It wasn't an actual class. I was doing it on Duolingo and, oh my gosh, what's that one app? There's a language exchange app on the Play Store. I keep forgetting what it's actually called because I haven't been on it in forever. But I'd love to go back to learning those languages, because it sucks kind of knowing a little bit of each language but not enough to actually hold a conversation. Because honestly, all of these countries I wanted to visit at some point in time, and still do. I'd love to visit France at some point, but I want to know the language before I go there. Even though people say you don't need to know French to go there, because a lot of people speak English. But Japanese, Korean, I'd love to know the languages before I actually go. Ooh, water break. Ooh. It seems a bit excessive to some people to want to speak fluently in a language before visiting the country, but part of me hopes that I can stay there for a bit longer than just a weekend or just a week, maybe even two. Maybe stay there for a month or the full 90 days I have on my visa. Being able to sit back and actually not worry about how I'm gonna fare in this other country. Not have to rely on my phone as much. Don't need a translator constantly in my hand. If I want something, I can just go out and go get it without worrying much. I went on a little tangent, very far from the original question. So, to move on from that, What phobias do I have? It's a bit of a question right there. I suppose my main phobia is the fear of failure. I have a rather big fear of letting people down or being a disappointment. It honestly showed in my first semester of college and a lot of my high school years. I was genuinely afraid of failing so much that I purposefully would flunk out just so I knew that my failure was in my hands. It seems ridiculous to some people. Why would you throw away such a great opportunity? But it's honestly wild. The way that the anxious brain just works. I just I just thought to myself that I'd rather fail by my own hand than put forth my best effort and it not be enough. I'd rather know that oh to that I'd rather know that I failed because of me and I'll never know if I could actually do it, then I put forth my best effort, try to go above and beyond, and not be able to do it. Which, even to this day, I still struggle with. I'm not purposely failing anymore, but I'm trying to get myself out of the mindset of I'd rather not do it at all than try to do it and it not be enough. On a less existential part, I do have a phobia of, honestly, as a grown woman, this is honestly quite embarrassing to admit, I do have a fear of the dark. I know, goddess of dreams, nightmares, and she's afraid of darkness. It's it's a little deeper than just I had one bad nightmare as a kid. I honestly don't know exactly when it started, but I just could not handle being in my room by myself. It honestly felt like I was being watched. But I can already explain that away to another situation that happened that for my first live stream, I'd rather not say now, but I'll reserve it for another time because I think it's an important story to tell. But I always felt watched in my room. I always felt like there was something always there, and it was not a good thing. Let me just real quick. As sad as it seems, I felt a little more comfortable, like sleeping in or near the closet than ever sleeping in my own bed. I've gotten better with the whole fear of darkness thing. It's only taken about 10 years to fully develop out of it. I wouldn't say fully develop out of it, but mostly develop out of it. I do have a bit of a hard time, like, getting used to the shapes in the dark. To explain, so nobody thinks I'm going insane, I have a lot of eye floaters. So I constantly see shapes. So in the darkness, I can still just barely see them. It honestly just looks like, if anybody's seen that quote invisible effect in video games and media where you can just see the outline of somebody and they kind of just look like a bubble, a little rainbow iridescence of a bubble. It kind of looks like that, but just in straight darkness. It's a little creepy, but I know nothing's there. I just have to remind myself, hey, that's just your eyes. You're fine. There's nothing there. Alright, now that I've had these set, let me do this. Hmm, 200 should be good. I'm gonna move ahead, just because, that subject's getting, a little tense. Huh, bless me. Question I decided to save was, where do I see myself in the future? I know. Absolute riveting questions. But decided to save this one because I knew it'd get me yapping for a little while. One of my biggest dreams was to study abroad and get my degree in another country. Honestly, the country has changed as I've gotten older. It was going to be Ireland, and then it changed to France, Korea, Japan, Australia. I've bounced around, but my interest of studying abroad is still there. I am currently in school, so live streams are probably going to be a little sparse. If anyone's actually interested in hearing me yap for several hours at a time. I wanted to study abroad in Japan, but of course, because the abroad programs in universities are basically first come, first serve, I have a list of several places I'd love to go. Um, List being Australia, Japan, of course, Korea, Ireland again. Love the Emerald Isle. France I've kind of taken off the list. And it's not abroad, but it technically is. I'd actually like to go study in Hawaii, even though I despise warm temperatures. With what could be considered only a fiery passion, cold is my thing. As the saying goes, I can put on enough layers when it's cold to make myself warm. But when it's hot, there's only so many layers I can take off and still be hot. Um, so yes, studying abroad. After I got my degree, I actually wanted to try starting up my own school, which kind of sounds ridiculous, because I never really had that dream in mind for myself. I mean, ridiculous for myself. To all of you, it may seem like an absolutely normal aspiration, but for myself, I never had that desire. Typically, it was always I wanted to be a teacher, an employee of the school. Another aspiration I had was I wanted to be a veterinarian. I wanted to be a wildlife biologist. I wanted to go and do fish and game conservation. But never once did I ever think to myself, I'm gonna open a school. Wasn't a single consideration in my mind. But for a long while, I had the aspiration of helping the youth of America. Because, you've seen it, it's all over Twitter, it's all over social media, in the news. Sorry, that was the mic. Our generation is going downhill, and I wanted to open up a school, which is essentially just a trade school, but it starts at the high school level and is an official high school that students can go to. And basically, it's going to be a mock trial to convince senators and governors to change the current curriculum that we have in America, so students have a chance at actually getting a job and going into trade after they graduate high school. So instead of having to apply for a community college while they're in high school, we just start them automatically into a community college when they're in high school. Or at least turn that into their last 2 years of credits. So when they graduate, they have certificates. They have already an associate's degree. So they immediately can go into a 4-year college, half the cost, and with all the knowledge that they need. I mean, if they can't give us free education, the least they can do is at least try to give us, pardon, try to give us a shot when it comes to our education and the job force. And just laying out a foundation for new kids that even if they don't go to a 4-year university, they still have the skills to immediately pick up a good paying job as soon as they leave high school. Sometimes that's just all people need. I'm probably gonna move this down here. Hmm. I'm probably gonna take this color and just redo that. Where's not what I was looking for. Color history. Thank you. Goodness. On a less exciting note, other than starting schools, trying to be a philanthropist, honestly, just mainly have the aspiration of living outside of America. I don't think I'll leave permanently or even try to strive for a dual citizenship somewhere else. I think I'll just stay abroad for maybe 2-3 years, then come back. Yeah, and again, main countries I typically think of when it comes to living abroad is Australia, Japan, Korea, Ireland. In my mind, it's just a fun excursion. Excursion's probably not the right word to use. I've gone silent. I also just want to take that time to learn about different cultures, come back to America, and hopefully apply some of the knowledge that I've gained to the people around me, and if everything works out, to my students and all the attendees of my future school. Again, only if things work out. Things could go belly up, and that's honestly just the work of the industry. Now, I think I know what they were asking when they left this for me, but I'm gonna answer it my way, which is going to be a lot more fun. Calypso, goddess of dreams, what is the greatest dream I've ever had? Now, I'm gonna answer this my way, even though I assume they meant what's the greatest dream I've ever had, as in aspirations. But the literal dream that I had was, it was a saga, actually. It happened several years apart, these 4-part sagas. I was a spy, an international spy. And it's hard to describe the layout of the headquarters I was in. But I can basically sum it up to the Microsoft Pipe screensaver. The spy headquarters was fashioned out of a really old sewer tunnel, but there were pipes everywhere. And I don't mean like the normal sized pipes that you'd see in like your kitchen. I mean like Super Mario sized pipes. And each one had a spaceship that would come in and out of the area. And I always started the dream by hopping into my little shuttle, zooming into the spy network, and being given my mission. But always, 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 right before the landing, which was a sheer 90-degree drop down, and then it would swoop into basically a landing spot, always at that 90-degree angle where it was going really fast, the lid would pop open and it would send me flying out. And I basically had to parkour across the pipes to land safely. That was a consistent one out of all 4 of the dreams I had. So when I finally got down, only in one of them did I not actually land safely. In the other 3, when I actually got down, I was being given my assignment, and it was always something weird. One, I had to track down somebody's dog because the dog was stealing from everybody in the neighborhood and was actually a enemy being disguised as a dog. Like almost D&D druid style. They managed to wild shape him into a dog, and he was infiltrating people's houses and stealing information from them. So I had to go out, I had to go find this dog, and I had to bring him back to the headquarters. So I get this dog into my car. The process of finding him and getting him, trapping him, sorry, wasn't really eventful. It was kind of just like a blink and I'm there. I basically had to fight the dog and the rope because somehow the rope became sentient into my car, which made me look weird to all the neighbors because why am I forcing a roped dog into the backseat of my car? So at some point, the neighbors called the police on me. So I basically go on this giant pursuit with the police, trying to avoid them. And I'm on the phone with my boss, who's telling me just keep going, keep avoiding them. We'll open up the shuttle entrance for you. You can just drive in and we'll shut it behind you so the cops can't follow. But what ended up happening was the controller to the door jammed and let in 2 police officers into the spy network. So now they're chasing me through the shuttle tunnels. I get to the main lobby area with our enemy. The cops have chased me in, and everybody in the facility turns to me and asks, what did I do? Why didn't I just abort the mission after the cops were called? But we basically started a gunfight, but it was a water gunfight. We were using water guns, lasers. I strictly remember there were lasers. But I woke up just as the dog had basically lost its ability to hold its dog shape and transform back into a man. And now the cops were confused because that is a man who was once a dog. We're stuck in a giant network of pipes, and we have no radio signal back to the overland. So we can't even call for backup. We're stuck down here. And I can't remember what I told them, but I told them something. And then I woke up. And that was the most wild dream I ever had. I can't I can't attest to it being the greatest in terms of the content that was in it, but overall that had to be like the best dream I ever had just because it was so off the wall compared to what I normally dream about, which usually is rather realistic or pertains something to my daily life, but adds a level of whimsy to it. I'm usually rather lucid, so I'm able to add a bit of flair here and there. But this one was the most ridiculous dream I've ever had, and it still holds an impact on me, and I don't think I'll ever let it go. Hands down, best thing that ever happened to me, that dream. Let me adjust my chair real quick. There we go. So, another one that I had set aside, just because typically this is a particular set of questions that's asked rather often when it comes to women's and them doing Q&As. So I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna write these ones down. First one I have is, what do I personally value most in a friendship or a relationship? Because I am not in a relationship, I'll mostly be talking about a friendship, but I will dip into romantic relationships. In a friendship, something I value most is honesty. I'd rather have a friend who outright says to my face that maybe they don't like the partner I'm with, or they don't like the fact that I do this or that. Oop. There we go. I'd rather hear from them, like my annoying habits, or hear from them that they don't trust the situation I'm in and they'd like to sit down with me and do a re-evaluation. I'd rather do that than sit by and I'm just gonna get a general idea how I want these flowers to look. I made these very boob-like, which is not okay. Now they just look like grapes. Man, I had an idea going. I was cooking. Then I burnt water. Somebody get me out the kitchen. I'd rather hear from a friend that they don't trust the situation I'm in than for me to do a bit of self-discovery, if that's the proper way to put it. Because honestly, it comes from being an artist. You value somebody's honesty more than you value them trying to protect your feelings. I'd rather a friend tell me that um I have this super annoying habit than for me to, I don't know, perhaps be on a date or something like that. Or be in a job interview and I let that annoying habit slip. Or maybe they get major red flags from a partner I'm with. I'd rather hear from them that they feel uncomfortable with me putting myself in the situation than something actually bad happens and it could have been avoided. Trying to think of another thing I would value in a friend. Honestly, I like the friends that I have in we don't really talk to each other all that often, which would sound awful, but we don't really need to keep a constant tab on each other. Or at least my friends don't feel the need to keep a constant tab on me. They know where I am, they know what I'm doing. Absolutely nothing. But I appreciate my friends just giving me that space. I honestly feel a little weirded out if I keep getting message after message every single day. It's just, I feel a bit bombarded if somebody does that to me. Now, it's a complete separate story if we're like in an active relationship and you just want to know certain things. Like, that is understandable. We're a little more than just talking casually. Now, speaking of romantic relationships, something I value most in it is just general understanding. And I don't mean that in some super philosophical way. I just mean that quite honestly, literally. Like, if you get weirded out by the fact that I watch anime and you can't tear yourself to think that somebody of my age would be watching something quote unquote made for kids. I can't do it. If if you don't watch anime yourself, that is perfectly fine. I'm not asking for somebody who's gonna sit beside me and be there for the next season of Jujutsu Kaisen. I'm just saying, if I'm watching a show, don't be judgmental about it. Just understand that that's my thing. You can have your thing. Just like if I got in a relationship with a shoe guy, I don't understand shoe guys, but I'm not gonna hark on you for wanting to buy shoes. Hmm. Honestly, I'm not very picky. That's literally all I ask. Oh, I need a beverage. Sorry, that was the mic again. I guess one more thing that I value. Can you be a Dungeons and Dragons DM? Seriously, I need a DM. I need somebody who can help me make my campaign. Which, because it's rather late, it's currently 1 in the morning, and I am not this far of a night owl. I'm not gonna get into that. Maybe next time when I decide to do a hobby stream, which is probably just gonna be a just chatting stream, but I'm going to just be talking about hobbies, and if anybody who decides to join along, pardon me, would like to recommend anything, the chat is absolutely open to that. But for the time being, it's just going to be some general questions I have laid out for me. I'm making these look very much like grapes. That is not a good thing. Keeping along with the whole relationship questions, I had one that was a popular ask by men. What is an attractive trait in a partner? I'm going to answer this for both men and women because I am attracted to both. So, in men, I think an attractive trait is I didn't expect this question to be so hard for me. 'Cause I'm trying not to say stuff that's just blatant. Like, oh, I want a man who's responsible. Responsibility is such an attractive trait. Oh my gosh. Or a man who cooks. You know what? Let me try to give some genuine advice. If you want to be attractive as a man, be confident, but don't be overly confident. And be funny. You'll see that a lot of comedians, despite looking very mid, in fact, some of them looking a solid 3 out of 10, have the hottest wives. You'll see it as the Roger Rabbit effect. The man looks absolutely dog, but the wife is a supermodel. That's because being funny pays off. Knowing how to tell a good joke is so valuable. Men literally just go to comedy clubs, go online, write down a whole bunch of jokes. In fact, write down a comedy routine. Practice that in and out so you'll be able to just tell jokes right off the top of your head. And if she laughs, she's a keeper. Now, what do I find attractive in women? This is a bit of an odd question because it's hard for me to, again, think of something that's not just blatant. Can it count as a trait of just exercise, working out? I admire buff women. Like, you know, the stereotypical, like, himbo gym rat? I need bimbo gym rat. Need to stretch. Oof. I find nothing more attractive than a buff woman who has golden retriever personality. That is why one of my favorite characters in Baldur's Gate 3 is Karlach. That's why when I had the option, Mule the Lioness and Aela the Huntress in Skyrim were my main options as followers. Me love strong woman. But if we're talking less about personality and more just about the body, I prefer my men shorter. I prefer my women taller. When I say shorter men, I don't mean like 2 feet tall. I mean like my height or about a foot and a half shorter. I mean, if the love of my life is a solid 2.5 feet tall, I'm going for it. But in preference, I prefer like a foot and a half shorter than me. In real life, I am just about 5'10". And not so much branching off of that, but a bit of an addition, because the next question is, what is my favorite, or I guess my main form of love language or intimacy? My main two, which were basically neck and neck after I know online quizzes, they suck, but it helps me get an understanding of just about where I am mentally. My favorite forms, or my best forms of love language, were, to clarify, this is for my partner to show to me. My love languages were physical touch and acts of kindness. I prefer being closer to my partners. I prefer at times being held or just sitting by them. Sounds a little obsessive girlfriendish, but I just like being next to my partner, being around them. I don't have to be like actively touching them at times, just being in the same room as them is enough. Or just being in the same house as them. Even if I'm in one room and they're in another, it feels comforting to me to know that they're still here. Because I really do not do good by myself. And again, that makes me sound like an obsessive girlfriend, but I mean in the sense of when I'm by myself, I quickly run out of things to do. I basically try to fill my time with doing chores and doing little hobbies of mine like gaming, drawing. But quickly, my ADHD takes over and I skip on to the next project. And basically, I have a hard time sitting still. So if I, for whatever reason, maybe had a security cam facing me, you'd see that for an entire day where I'm sitting there by myself, I'm not able to sit down. I have to get on the Switch, no longer on the Switch, on the computer, researching something for no apparent reason. And then I'm doing the dishes. The dishes are done. I'm gonna wait for the dishes to dry, so I'm gonna do laundry. I've done the laundry. Alright, now I'm gonna fold the laundry. I don't like folding laundry. I've done half of the laundry. I'm gonna go back to my game. I'm done gaming. It's only been like 30 minutes. I'm gonna go back to the dishes, see if they're dry. They're not dry, but I'm gonna wipe them off with a towel. Now there's dirty laundry again, so I should probably collect any possible dirty laundry so I can clean this one towel. I'm gonna put the dishes away. I'm gonna go back to my game. I'm gonna realize that I've left a pile of laundry on my bed that I need to now go fold up, finishing folding up, and go put away. If that sounded exhausting to listen to, now imagine doing it actively. Sometimes it just pays off to have somebody else in the house. So when I end up doing an endless loop of just doing chores, they can just, hey, I think you should sit down. I think you should let me handle this. We're getting to a point where I'm starting to get a little bit exhausted, a little bit tired. So I'm probably going to call it quits here, actually. So, thank you for showing up to my live stream. I know I didn't get many people here, but thank you. Thank you anyway. So if you enjoyed this, I'd appreciate if you come back again and maybe, I don't know, sit by, maybe do a little chat in the live chat, maybe subscribe, ring the bell. So although I didn't do much art, because looking at this, it's not very detailed. I will be coming back to it, because I do plan on adding like a tree over here, maybe some bushes on the ground. Yeah, so I'm probably gonna do this tomorrow, and tomorrow's probably just gonna be a hobby stream. Just gonna try to talk about different hobbies that I have, and if anybody in the chat decides that they want to participate, they can. So thank you to all who decided to drop by. I hope you come by again, and that's it. Thank you for coming by. See you next time.